I want to speak in favour of this motion, although I have concerns about parts of it. But overall, I agree with the motion and the focus it's putting on infrastructure, the absence of infrastructure. I will not support the narrative that has been said on this side of the House and that in relation to objections causing the planning problems. That is a false narrative, a self-serving narrative. And I've just put in a question in my office to confirm the amount of vacancies in the planning system. And at any given time, I'm told there are 500, Minister. 500 vacancies at any given time. I tried my best to elicit a response from the Department of Housing lately and I failed, but they confirmed it was in around 500 vacancies. So to actually scapegoat objectors, I don't know any objectors. I know concerned residents and citizens who break their heart to put in submissions, but because they're concerned. And indeed in Galway, I have fought for student accommodation repeatedly. However, it's completely developer-led, the student accommodation. It's popping up where it decides it will make the best profit and have left the residents in different areas throughout the city in a most difficult position. So I won't support that self-serving narrative. In relation to housing, to stop all of this talk, and actually if we used the amount of words that we use here in the Dáil, I'm sure we could build quite a number of estates of housing based on those words. And to stop all of these words, we asked that you commissioned a Housing Commission report, which reported last May, over a year ago, and they had 83 recommendations. And what jumped out for me was they said there had been systemic failure, we needed a radical reset, we need to change our policy completely. And what you did was you ran with one aspect of that in relation to rent pressure zones. And specifically in the recommendation said, don't run with one of these. I'm paraphrasing them. They said, all of these recommendations must be taken on board for a radical reset, a completely different vision. Now, in the middle of this, and I'm going to go into some of it, there's one little hope for Galway, where I finally learn, in the midst of an absolute dreadful housing crisis in Galway, that we are now learning that 75% of the houses are being built directly. So that 75% of projected delivery being through own builds is very positive, and I agree with that. It's the one little piece of hope from that forum, which is sitting for way too long without publishing a comprehensive report in relation to the housing crisis in Galway. It's been mentioned already that Niall Muldoon has highlighted the catastrophic consequences of homelessness for children. I know teachers, some of them in my own family, in Dublin, and the children are coming from different homeless forums into school and are expected to actually compete and be on the same level as other children. And all that's increasing are the number of homeless organisations. We've gone from McVerry and we've gone to other organisations, filling a void where the government should be doing it and preventing homelessness. In my opinion, just on the McVerry, and it's before it's on the public accounts, that entity should have never been allowed to develop in the manner it did with a lack of oversight. I'm not casting any aspersions on the tremendous work done, but it should have been left to cope for those who need a wraparound service, who are homeless for lots of reasons. Instead of that, it went off in all sorts of different directions without any monitoring, buying a hotel that's empty now since 2022, and many other problems besides. So let's look at the housing and what the Commission said. And the Commission said we should look at the need for housing, not what's needed. We should assess housing in Ireland on the basis of what's needed for a well-functioning society. And that's kernel for me. That's something that's been continuously ignored by every government that puts an emphasis on the market will provide, as if a home is not the most essential thing that one can have for security of tenure, to allow people to raise families, to participate in society. Instead of that, every single week they're worrying about security of tenure and where they're going to end up. Change of schools, change of all their conditions because of lack of security. And the Housing Commission, imagine we needed a Housing Commission to tell us that, how essential a home is, and to put the emphasis on a well-functioning society and how many houses do we need for that. And they specifically asked us not to conflate that with market demand or construction capacity, to look on housing in a completely different way. They also said, at the very least, we need 20% of social housing and cost rental at least 20% of the overall target. That's what we need set by government. And of course, that's not happening at all. And the chair is there, and she was in the City Council, and so was myself. I was there for 17 years. And unfortunately, Minister, I watched the local authority being starved of funds, being starved of functions, and forced into a situation after the crash. The government, with all of its tricks in relation to accounting and off-balance sheets and introducing the housing assistance payment, which is an absolute disaster, and it's over £500 million per year, nearly £1 billion with the other schemes. And again, the Housing Commission is saying, please, put that back to what it should be short-term, and let's build local authority housing. But we can't do that because somewhere between the blame game, the local authorities saying they haven't enough money, and the department saying we have loads of money, and yet we have a crisis. And to me, part of the solution, and perhaps I'm too simple or too see it, but I have a lot of experience behind me in terms of what I've watched. And public housing, public land should have public housing, nothing else. There shouldn't be premium housing on it or any other type of housing. Public housing on public land. And that's what the task force in Galway should be ensuring when they have now said since 2019.